Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Night News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, Ron Rivera, back in action today, was away from the team yesterday, handled a family matter. One of the first things we wanted to know, obviously, is he okay? Is his mom okay? And he gave some clarification on that. So that was good to hear. But the next thing that we were interested in was the status of one Chase Young. We talked about it yesterday. We've been talking about it all week. Was this going to be the week he returns to action? I've been on record as saying I thought it was week 9. And there was an outside chance, and I told you guys, don't rule out this week. But I didn't like the optics of what was going on surrounding his situation. If he were going to play this week, it would have been more like the week Brian Robinson had leading up to the Titans game, where he's practicing on Wednesday. They're excited about it. They haven't activated him yet, haven't started that shot clock yet. However, it's trending in that direction, and you're stacking practices on top of each other, and he's coming back, and he's feeling no ill effects of the work that's being put on him during the course of the week, and then they make the decision to activate him, and he's ready to rock and roll. That's not what's happening this week. Reportedly, and we got this from Ron firsthand. So Ron talked about the meeting that was supposed to happen Sunday. It was a positive meeting, but they put a workload on him on Sunday prior to the game. We saw clips of him, really testing it. That's the first time I've seen him actually really going hard, stopping, cutting, turning, running, accelerating on that knee, and it looked good. And so Ron said they put a heavy workload on him prior to the game on Sunday. They put a couple of extra days of work on him, and then they wanted to have the knee assessed on Wednesday, which ultimately turned into today from Dr. Andrews. So Chase went out there, saw Dr. Andrews. They're waiting on the reports back, but Ron said he heard from Al Bellamy, who's the medical trainer with Washington, the head of the medical staff, rather, and he said that everything sounded like it was going well. So Ron said the shot clock's going to start next week. So without any setbacks, and we'll go ahead and knock on a little bit of wood, barring any kind of a setback with Chase Young, it more likely than not looks like next week will be his return to the lineup, his much anticipated return to the lineup. And as well as the defensive line has been playing this season, you're going to get a massive boost if Chase Young can come in. And just his presence alone, even if it looks like it did last year before the injury, his presence alone on the field is going to make an impact. But if he can get back to his rookie form of 2020, all bets are off as to how good this defense could possibly be, especially up front. We still got question marks on the back end, but if you enhance the pressure that they've already been getting, you're going to ultimately have the back end benefit from his presence, and the rest of those guys, Sweat, Payne, and Allen, and James Smith-Williams, and F.A. Obata, and Casey Toohill, and all of those guys that have played really well for Washington this season on that defensive front. It's only going to get better with Chase Young coming back. And again, don't expect him to come in and set the world and the league ablaze, right? And I expect the snap count to be minimal, like maybe 35, 40% of the snaps. He's not going to be playing 80, 85, 90% like Montez Sweat and some of those interior guys are playing. He's going to be down they're going to have to rev him up. He's not in game playing shape. So don't expect to see Chase Young out there a whole hell of a lot, even in his first game back. But that's great news. We finally got a bit of clarity. Sounds like next week is the target week. They will start that shot clock next week. And usually once you start that shot clock, that guy's probably going to play that week. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to start the shot clock and then, find yourself pressed up against that shot clock. You start that clock when you need to, and I think them starting that clock signifies that they feel like he's ready to get back on the field and contribute in some way, shape, or form. So I'm excited. I can't speak for you out there, but I'm excited about that news. We can stop asking the questions about when is he going to return to practice. We got our answer from Ron Rivera, barring any setbacks. He'll hit the practice field next week. They'll see how he responds to a heavier workload during the course of the week. If all things go well, I think it's all systems go on Sunday next week, 1 p.m., FedEx Field against the Minnesota Vikings. That'll be a big game. No matter what happens with Washington this week, it'll be an even bigger game if Washington wins this week against the Indianapolis Colts. But no matter what happens, that's a big game in the NFC for Washington against the team that's leading the NFC North in the Minnesota Vikings. No matter what happens with the Vikings, whether they win or lose this upcoming week, they're going to be leading that division, whether it's at 6-1 or if it's at 5-2. That's going to be a big game at the crib. It'd be so good to get Chase Young back and give us a full cupboard to go and attack that Vikings offense. So, let's go in other news. We heard from Ron Rivera, as I just mentioned, and we'll talk more about some of the things that he had to say. There was another nugget in there that's impactful for today's or this upcoming weekend's game. We'll talk about that in a second. We also heard from offensive coordinator Scott Turner, and he had some really nice things to say about Taylor, as we expected. But Taylor's, that's his boy. He had some nice things to say about Taylor last year. And so we'll talk about those things. And then we'll kind of fold everything into this upcoming weekend's matchup versus the Indianapolis Colts. We heard from players in the locker room. I really love me some Benjamin St. Juste. That kid gets it. He's another one of those dudes on this team. Speaks his mind, does it eloquently. He said something that not a lot of players have said about Heineke, and I loved it because it's so true. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Let's first, though, attack this injury report for week number 8. We start with the Indianapolis Colts this time around. So I talked about them having a laundry list kind of like us. Here's the difference. Most of their guys are going to play in this game. Most of their guys are full participants. As you see, Stephon Gilmore and Yannick Ngakoue, we talked about this yesterday. They weren't out for any injury-related reasons, just rest. Okay, non-injury related missing practice yesterday. So both of those guys were full today. We don't even need to talk about them anymore. They're going to play. They shouldn't even be on this list. Kwity Paye did not practice today or yesterday. I told you he's not playing, so we don't need to worry about Kwity Paye. Grant Stewart, pec injury, don't think he's going to play either. Matt Ryan, right shoulder, we know he's not going to play. And so those are the guys that are really the ones that aren't going to play. Everybody else was a full participant today, except for Grover Stewart, who wasn't even on the injury report yesterday. Why? Because he's not injured. They just gave him a day off due to rest. He's a veteran, and they decided he needed a day off. So everybody else, JoJo Doman, linebacker, Ryan Kelly, center, Kiki QT, wide receiver, Zaire Franklin, linebacker, Shaq Leonard, linebacker, Luke Rhodes, all these guys, full participants, all of them trending towards playing. And so we've got our work cut out for us, especially on the defensive side of the football. Zaire Franklin, really good linebacker for them. Shaq Leonard, their best player on their team, not just on the defense. The leader of that team, not just the defense, is going to play. Haven't played in like 4 weeks or so, and really hasn't played much at all this season. And they wanted to really make sure he was right before they brought him back, and now he's right. And so I'm not looking forward to that at all. But they're in good shape. I wish I could say the same for us, but that is not the case as we transition to Washington's list. No Sadiq Charles for the second consecutive day with an illness. Again, that starts to worry me as you get to Thursday and he does not practice. Now, again, we saw the same thing with Curtis Samuel a few weeks back where he had an illness, missed the first 2 days of practice, came back, practiced on Friday, and was ready to go by Sunday. It's not ideal, but it's possible. Again, I hate when we treat these guys like they're machines and not humans. Just imagine if you were sick and you weren't able to keep any fluids down, for 3-4 days, how would you feel, right? Like it's not something you just bounce back from, and they're playing a physically demanding sport and game. I just hope he's okay, able to, be ready to get back out there Friday, and then start to rehydrate his body and get himself in a position to play. If he can't, we don't know the status of Wes Schweitzer. No one asked Ron about Wes Schweitzer. I think he's eligible to come off of IR this week, if I'm not mistaken, because he went on IR right after the Eagles game, which was week 3. So this is week 8. So that's 4 weeks that have already elapsed. So I think he is able to come off of IR. Don't know if he's ready to even come back, though. Remember, he was dealing with a number of ailments, which is why they put him up there, concussion, a hamstring, all of that stuff. So, don't really know the status of Sadiq Charles. What I know I don't want to see is I don't want to see Trey Turner in the game. So hopefully if Sadiq can't go, they've got some kind of backup plan if Wes Schweitzer isn't able to go either, because that's the thing that I don't want to see is Trey Turner. in the lineup. Jahan Dotson, I told you guys I didn't think he was playing this week, and Ron confirmed it. That was the other big nugget. We got the Chase Young nugget. We got the Jahan Dotson news that he's not going to play this week. I didn't think he would. You know, when you tweak a hammy, I talked about how important a hamstring is for a finely tuned athlete like Jahan Dotson. These soft tissue injuries are so tough to gauge because you just never know. That's something that, you know, he may be dealing with for a while. And anytime a guy gets a hamstring, I get nervous because you just no telling. You know, you could be feeling fine one day and the next day it tightens up on you. He's not going to play this week. Let's hope we get him back next week for the Minnesota Vikings. Cole Holcomb. This one worries me more so than any other injury because we've functioned without Jahan Dotson. I'm worried about Sadiq Charles, but if you tell me Wes Schweitzer is healthy, I can manage. Cole Holcomb has been coming on along with Jamin Davis at the linebacker position, but not just because of how well he's been playing, but because of what we have behind him. The depth or lack thereof at linebacker was one of the positions, along with cornerback, that we worried about the most. And not having the leader of this defense, essentially the guy with the green dot that gets everyone lined up, who's been playing exceptionally well, that scares the shit out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, Ron said that he's got a foot sprain, and they've been trying to keep him off of his foot this week, and they're going to try to test him out tomorrow to see how he feels. If we don't get a good report tomorrow, if he's not able to go tomorrow, it could be a really tough situation. And Ron said this with the utmost confidence, and all I could do was cut my eye at him. If looks could kill, if I were in the room with Ron, he would have had a couple of daggers going right through his chest because he said it with a straight face. Oh, we're not concerned if Cole can't go. We got a couple of veterans that we really like, and John Bostic and David Mayo. And I went, like, what did you just say to me? I mean, those are fighting words around these parts. So that's worrisome, man. You know, that hurts. You know, this is when you start to think about, damn it, I wish we did have a bye week. You know, this is when you start thinking about those things. But the bye's not coming for anytime soon. So we're going to have to find a way to navigate this, man. And he may not be able to go this week against the Colts. And that could be a big deal. You're going up against a team that's going to start a guy making his first career NFL start. They're going to lean heavily on the run game. This is not the week for Cole Holcomb to be out of the lineup. William Jackson III. Ron was asked about him as well, so I'm kind of talking about everything that Ron had to say because a lot of what he had to say really pertained to the roster and some of these guys and some of these injuries. He was asked point blank by Nikki Javala, is William Jackson III going to play another snap for this team? And, you know, Ron kind of tiptoed around the answer and tap danced and pretty much said, look, I'm just trying to focus on the guy. That's never Ron's answer. I'm just focusing on the guys that are here and that are healthy and that are playing. That's never Ron's answer. So that tells you right there that they're going to try to shop this guy. They've got a week to do it. If they can't find any suitors, they may have to swallow their pride and put him back in the game. But right now, they don't want to play William Jackson III. If they had it their way, he would have played his last snap as a Washington Commander. I told you that 3 weeks ago. Like, this is fishy. I think he may be done. I'm sticking to my guns. I think he's done. And if they can move him, they will. And even if they have to keep him, I told you, it's amazing. His back is bothering him. I guarantee you, if he gets traded, he will be playing that first week he gets traded. I think this back thing is a nice front to just not have him out there so that they can try to shop him. Cole Turner, concussion, he's not going to play. Yeah, you guys go ahead and wrap that one up. Now you get to the guys that are limited. De'Ami Brown, groin. Groins are tough, so don't know what we'll get there. We would love to have him, being that Jahan Dotson already is out. Would love to have De'Ami Brown, but that's a tough situation because with a guy with speed, your groin is such a huge part of what you want to do. Logan Thomas, calf. Again, we thought he was going last week. Then it kind of got, rough on him towards the end of the week. So I don't know what to expect from Logan Thomas. These are all game time type decisions. I don't think, if I had to guess, I'd tell you De'Ami's not going to play. Logan has a chance. And Jonathan Williams' knee, I don't think he's a guy that they need to rush back. We got 3 backs that we really, truly love. And so I don't think that's something that they have to really push. But you want him healthy just for keepsake. Sam Cosmi finger, I expect him to start at right tackle on Sunday. Taylor Heineke, no issues there. And Jonathan Allen, just a rest, just a rest day. Nothing wrong with him, no ailments. I mean, he's probably still dealing with a couple of things. Remember, he had the groin after week 1, as a matter of fact. But I think they just decided, hey, why not give him a little bit of a break? So, that's the injury report, man. There's some big names on this thing, and again, Sadiq Charles, boy, we could use him on Sunday. Cole Holcomb, boy, we could use him on Sunday. De'Ami Brown, boy, we could use him on Sunday. Logan Thomas, boy, we could use him on Sunday, right? So there's some names up here that we could definitely use on Sunday, hoping that these guys, crossing our fingers that these guys can come back and help this football team in some capacity. We'll see if that happens or not. So I pretty much told you everything that Ron had to say that was of interest to me. He talked about the run game and how it impacts the team and, the different ways that having a strong run game, time of possession, defense isn't as tired and gassed. It hurts the other team's defense. The offensive line is able to come off the football. All of that stuff he talked about, which is fine and dandy. But the biggest things that came out of his mouth today were revolving around players and their availability. Jahan Dotson, Chase Young, William Jackson III, his status moving forward. Those were the big takeaways from his presser today. You get to Scott Turner. He was a lot more jovial and upbeat. Not that he ever isn't. He's a pretty, down-to-earth dude. But obviously, you win 2 in a row. The offense plays much better. I think he's so much more comfortable with Taylor Heineke. It's not even close. And just the wrinkles that, we saw from him. I talked about him being really good on Sunday versus the Green Bay Packers. I need an encore, though. And I don't trust him because the 2 times he's been exceptional this season, week 1 against Jacksonville, week 7, he's had extra time to prepare for the opponent. I want to see if he can do the things that he did, the creativity with Curtis and having Amani Rodgers take a wildcat snap out of gun and things of that nature. I want to see all that dynamic play, the screens and things that we saw. I want to see that on a week that is normal. A normal work week. We haven't seen that weeks 2 through 6. We only saw it in the bookend weeks thus far, 1 and 7, and both of those had extra time to the lead up of the game. So I want to see if he can do it in a short week. He talked about Taylor Heineke and his level of comfort throwing the football, timing, anticipation, trust in Terry. There were a couple of comments. One was about the eyes being closed with Heineke. A lot of you sent me that picture of him as he's throwing that 3rd down pass to Terry. He's about to get hit by Kenny Clark, and his eyes were closed. And it's human reaction, right? When something's about to happen, you brace for impact. Your eyes usually close. So Scott Turner talked about, I think they called him blinking, man. I mean, that's what I thought when I first saw he had to be just in the middle of a blink, but he looked like he was closing his eyes. It didn't look like you blink. It looked like he was closing his eyes, bracing for impact. His eyes were closed. But who am I to say? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, the ball got there. That's all that matters. And he talked about the anticipation, and he feels like Taylor has gotten better. And more comfortable, which comes with more reps. And Scott talked about that last year with Taylor. The more he plays, the more comfortable he gets. Yep, there were some mishaps in the first half, but he was able to work through that and played some outstanding football. And Scott said, look, I would love to run the football 38 times every week. And I said the same thing. I said this almost verbatim, almost as if he just read a transcript from the post-game show or the Monday show whenever I said it. But he said, I would love to run the ball 38 times, but you got to get first downs first. I think I said that to my guy, Derek B as well. Derek B kept talking about how Taylor Heineke had the benefit of the run game, and Carson Wentz has never had that here in Washington to this point. I'm like, that's because we converted on 3rd downs, and that's something that Carson Wentz struggled with. You want to run the football, you got to convert on 3rd downs. That gives you more opportunities to run the football. It's not rocket science. And so, he said that. He's like, dude, I'll run it 38 times. I don't have a problem doing that. We just need to keep converting on 3rd down, which we hadn't done the 2 previous weeks and really hadn't been great at since the Detroit game, to be honest with you, in the second half of that game. So, he was really talking about, the ability to run the football. And another thing that they brought up was JD, just the lack of opportunities for him. And he's like, look, if these guys got it going and we stay out of third down, it's going to be tough for JD to crack the lineup. I mean, he'll get his carry here and there. He'll be in that 2-minute offense right before halftime. He'll be in those, obvious passing situations from time to time. But, when Antonio's got it going the way that he did and Brian Robinson's got it going, in the physicality realm, like we saw with those third and shorts and things of that nature and converting, it's going to be tough for JD to crack the lineup. But at the end of the day, Scott was like, yeah, we feel good about where we are. We want to continue to progress. We really like what's going on. And so this was a good start for him with Heineke. I want to see it continue to push forward. So that's where we are right now. Big game coming up. Want to see if they can take this, package it up, take it on the road against a quality NFL defense in the Indianapolis Colts. Speaking of which, let's go behind enemy lines and get to know these Indianapolis Colts and what it's going to take to get a victory on Sunday. So we're behind enemy lines. Again, you guys know how this goes. Need some help. Look over out of the bunker. And we got some help here with our guy, Cody from Bring the Juice Colts podcast. Cody, thank you for joining us. This is a crazy situation. This team, it never ceases to amaze me, with Washington, how they end up in some of the situations that they have. The Colts are starting to feel like one of those teams now where they just end up in these crazy situations as well. We would have had so much to talk about if this matchup was what we thought it was going to be when it was on the schedule. Carson Wentz, big return to Indy, Matt Ryan, and this would have been a referendum on the deal, right? Like, okay, you swapped out Carson for Matt Ryan, and how's it going for you? And that's what we were supposed to be talking about, right?
Right.
Well, Wentz isn't playing in the game for Washington, and now neither is Matt Ryan. Sam Ellinger is getting the start, and not only this felt so like Jay Gruden coming out back in 2015 and announcing that Kirk Cousins was the starter for the entire year, not just to start the season. He's the starter for the entire year. I was shocked. I'm like, Matt Ryan's got a separated shoulder. Okay, cool. He'll be out a couple of weeks. No. Matt's even if he were healthy, he's done. We're gonna roll with Sam and see what this is about. Wow, yeah. Cody, how did we get here?
That's a great question. And, it's just like for both of us, it's just like we did not expect at this point in the season to be where we're at, but here we are. I think in part, the offensive line I think is the biggest culprit. The offensive line surrendering so many hits, so many sacks to Matt Ryan. I don't care what kind of quarterback you have. He's going to get injured with this, poor play of the offensive line. And so I think that's a big part into it. And then also just Matt Ryan has not really been great for the Colts. Like, so many turnovers, so many fumbles, had 2 timely interceptions a week ago against Tennessee that really cost them the game. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, man, your defense on multiple occasions this year has allowed a touchdown or less, and you've still lost the game. So, for a lot of people, I know in the locker room, from what I've heard and what I've seen, a lot of people were shocked, surprised. I think we all were, but even players were shocked and surprised by this. And yeah, Matt Ryan's injured, but I think at this point, at least for me, I'm kind of excited because we're going to see, like, is Sam the guy? Is Sam the guy? And if not, great, top 10 pick. We're going to finally get our quarterback, hopefully. That's like my biggest like hope with this. And yeah, I know like Frank Reich isn't usually doesn't make those statements where he says this player is our starter for the whole year. He's usually pretty close vested, keeps things like, here. But yeah, he basically just like came out and said that. And we're just like, what?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just an injury. It was a benching.
Right.
A big deal because like the Colts have never, like in the Frank Reich, Chris Ballard era, they've never benched a quarterback in the middle of the season. Like even Jacoby Brissett didn't get benched the 1 year with Indianapolis. So, I mean, just telling you, man, how ridiculous it's been and how bad it's been with Indianapolis. And the crazy thing is, man, they're still somehow in the playoff hunt record-wise.
Right.
3-3-1.
Right.
But to me, I'm done with the mediocrity. I think the Colts are done with the mediocrity. Either Sam's going to be the guy and they're going to make a playoff push, or we're going to be really bad this year. And maybe we see the Colts start trading some players. I don't think they necessarily will, because I just don't think like it's in their DNA. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's kind of how we got here, is just, the Colts failing Matt Ryan, and then Matt Ryan really not looking great with the turnovers this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's leading the league in interceptions right now with 9. So, I mean, he's definitely been a turnover machine. And they're, like you said, ill-timed turnovers. Not that there's ever a great time for a turnover, but I think I want to go there next. So you spoke about Frank Reich and, Chris Ballard, the GM, and I feel like those two are kind of tied at the hip here. And I was a big proponent that Frank Reich was going to be the first coach fired this season because of the impulsive nature of Jim Irsay wanting to win now. He was so adamant about moving on from Carson Wentz. And I just felt like he felt like Matt Ryan. He called Matt Ryan one of the greatest leaders he's ever been around and all of that good stuff. And so I just expected, and easily the Colts could be 1-5-1 right now. I mean, easily could have lost to the Texans in week 1. You were down 20-3 in that game. Easily should have lost to the Denver Broncos. I still don't know how they managed to lose that game on a Thursday night, 12-9, right? So they easily could be 1-5-1 right now, but they're 3-3-1. And so, like you said, miraculously, you're right there in a division that's not great. And so Chris Ballard, Frank Reich, to me, I think they're still, Frank Reich is coaching for his job, which is why I don't know the whole, like a lot of people are using the word tanking. I don't know if he's in a position to do that, right? Same with Chris Ballard. I don't know if these guys are in a position to not win now. So talk to me about these guys. Are they on the hot seat or not?
Oh, I think they definitely both should be on the hot seat. There's no question about it. I mean, the fact that, Chris Ballard – has not gone and gotten the franchise guy. And it's just been Band-Aid after Band-Aid. Every single year, the Colts have a different starting quarterback since he's been here. Right. And at the end of the day, you can only use the Andrew Luck excuse so many times before it wears out. That's been how many years ago now? It's just like, it's time to move on and go and get your guy. And it's almost been like, he's been almost like hesitant to put his eggs in that basket, if you know what I mean. Like, to trust a rookie quarterback. So he keeps going after these 1 to 2 year rental guys. And it's just, at the end of the day, your offense just, you have a new quarterback in there, and your offense always is started off and had struggles, especially this year. Your offense has just been struggling for guys to get on the same page. And so, I think Ballard deserves his share of the criticism as well, just in that, because, just he hasn't addressed that, the fact that the Colts, Anthony Costanzo retired a couple seasons ago. Colts still haven't figured out their left tackle situation. And then they let some key players go. One of the players, Danico Autry, was really every single game he plays against the Colts, he lets them remember why they made a mistake letting him walk.
Playing well for the Titans too.
He is. Yeah. He is. And so just things like that, just kind of failing to address some really important positions as well. I think those are reasons. Well, I don't think he's necessarily his seat isn't necessarily as warm as, like, say, Frank Reich, because I do think Frank Reich at this point, like, if you watch his press conference, I said this on the stream, I said this on our channel. I think Frank Reich's a dead man walking. Like, I really do. He looks defeated. He looks like he doesn't have answers. He basically is not really offering explanations. If it makes sense, he's kind of ducking questions, and it's just like, that's not a good look for him. And it's kind of crazy because, like, this team, and this is why I think maybe Ballard has a little bit more saving grace, is this team last year had so many Pro Bowlers. They've had all pro players. Some of those players just aren't performing how they used to. It's clear that it's a coaching issue a good majority of the time, because, you can't have Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, Ryan Kelly, all guys who have been Pro Bowl, all pro kind of players, just all of a sudden just look terrible. Like, all of them, everybody on the offensive line has not played up to their standard. And then, you just look at some other guys like Matt Ryan has not looked himself either. There's just been a major regression in some players that were key to Indianapolis' success the last couple of years. And, you can throw some blame at the players, obviously, but at the end of the day, I think that's coaching.
Yeah.
And I also talk about, sorry to interrupt, I also talk about as well, just like the Colts have talent on offense. They have Pierce, they have Pittman, they have some tight ends that when they've been targeted, they played well. They have one of the best running backs in football in Taylor. They have Nyheim Hines, one of the best receiving running backs, but their offense still looks like what it looks like. And to me, it's like, that's not a personnel issue. That's a coaching issue.
I couldn't agree with you more about Frank Wright. Some of the decisions that he's made, like the field goal against Tennessee, the first game, when you're down 2 scores at that point, you're like, I know it's like 4th and forever, but dude, you can't kick a field goal right now. Like, it's head scratching. I've often called Chris Ballard, who I think has a keen eye for talent other than wide receiver. And Pierce is actually playing well this year, but I've always called him a coward because he's admitted openly, I'm not drafting a rookie quarterback because the sooner I draft one of those guys, the sooner you guys are going to run me out of town. So that he's telling you, I'm afraid to make a mistake at the most important position in the sport. And you can't be as a GM. Like, that's how you're going to keep your job as a GM, is go find that guy that's going to make you look good. And he's scared to pull the trigger on that. So, I don't know about Chris Ballard. I've still got my doubts and reservations about him. But, like you said, this is a big season because if Sam Ellinger proves to be the guy, then you're fine. If not, you'll probably be in that top 10 and what we think is going to be a relatively deep quarterback draft class. So you may be able to get your hands on one there. All right. So you talked about the defense and not giving up a ton of points. And this has been a tremendous defense historically, especially last couple of years under Matt Eberflus. He's now in Chicago as the head man there. You bring in Gus Bradley. This is now his defense. Give me your assessment of this defense. They've had to endure a ton. No Shaq Leonard for most of the season. Obviously, the offense has been anemic continuously. I mean, that Thursday night was painful to watch, and yet they went out on the field, continued to make plays, and gave the team a chance to win. They held the Chiefs down to their lowest point total of the season. This is a quality defense. Give me your assessment of this defense to this point of the season.
Yeah, you're right. They've had to face a lot of adversity. They haven't had Kwity Paye for 3-4 weeks now, who's really young, good edge rusher out there as well. While I'll say the turnovers have not been where they need to be, this defense has done exactly. Yeah, without him. Yeah. But I will say Zaire Franklin has filled up really well in his absence. He's one of the top league leaders in tackles right now. He's not necessarily a turnover machine, but he's stepped in well, and I think taken on a bigger role in that defense. Absolutely. And I just think these guys, they play hard. They've been able to get a little bit more pressure from their defensive line. That's something that Gus Bradley is really good at. Every single year it seems like his defenses from the year prior, they do better in pass rush. And then, it helps having a guy like Stephon Gilmore out there, who's still, I believe, a top 10 corner in this league, even at 32 years old. Yep. So, it's definitely there's a lot of good young pieces in this team, and they have I think a nice combination of vets as well. They have the Gilmores, they have Rodney McLeod back there at the strong safety position, and then they have some young guys too. They have the guys like Rodney Thomas, who out of nowhere, 7th round pick out of Yale, has come in and he has just been lights out at that free safety position. Even when Julian Blackmon, who was the incumbent starter, came back, they've had him out there. Right. And Isaiah Rodgers as well has looked really, really good. So this defense, I think, has a nice combination of a little bit of both, and they've been able to do a really good job at. I was surprised at how well they've been able to shut certain teams down in the run game. They've had their struggles for sure, like Jacksonville
a couple of weeks ago, right? Yep.
Right, but even like against Derrick Henry, even though he had over 100 yards, it never was a back-breaking 100 yards. Right. You did exactly what you needed to do against him. And the fact that now through I believe it's 6 quarters against Tennessee, right? The second half of the first game and then the 4 quarters of this game, you have not allowed a touchdown. You didn't allow a touchdown to them in 6 quarters, and you've lost both games. Right. To me, that's not a defensive issue. Yeah. And the defense has done a really good job, I think, all things considered. When they have the right guys in there, I think they're one of the better ones in the league still. And I want to give credit to Bradley and just everybody on this staff. They've done a really good job with this defense. And this defense has played hard despite the many adversities that they faced, pretty much through the injuries.
Yeah. And I think too, having seen Tennessee up close and personal, I think that's also an indictment on them. They don't have a lot of skill guys out there. They really don't. It's tough to stomach when you lose to them, knowing that they just have Derrick Henry. You know, it's tough, bitter pill to swallow, but they find ways to win, and then they were able to do that last week against Indy. I want to switch gears now and talk about the receivers. One of the positions, I actually think Ballard does a really good job of kind of filling in the blanks on the roster. One of the positions I think he swung and missed on quite often is wide receiver.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when you go back to his early drafts, you had Darius Fountain, you had the kid from Clemson, Deion Kane. I mean, it's and I know these were later draft picks, but you refuse to spend early round draft picks on guys. Obviously, Paris Campbell has had his ups and downs with injuries. When he's healthy, he looks like a good football player. I mean, he's already set career highs this year through 7 games because of the injuries. So he's still a guy that you're trying to see what he really truly can be in this league. I thought he held on to T.Y. Hilton 1 year too long. He should have been gone last year. He should not have been back. There was even a discussion about bringing him back this year. I remember early in the offseason or early in the regular season, I think you were really a big proponent of bringing in a veteran wide receiver, right, to bolster that group because it just wasn't enough. Alex Pierce has stepped up. I think he does a really good job with the tight ends. He always seems to find really good tight ends. I think the Jelani Woods kid is really talented. I don't know why he doesn't get more opportunities. When he's gotten those opportunities, he's been fantastic this season. But what do you think about the wide receiving core? Obviously, Alex Pierce, you've got Paris Campbell, and you've got, of course, Michael Pittman, and he's a stud. What do you think about this group? I think Pittman's been the one he's absolutely hit on. Pierce looks good to this point, but I haven't been a big fan of his selections. When I look at some of the draft picks, if I'm not mistaken, there was an opportunity. I would have taken George Pickens. Wasn't he available before? I think, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe you guys traded back because, if I'm not mistaken, you had Washington's second round pick, so you had a pick in front of Pittsburgh. Now, you may have traded back, picked up more picks.
Yeah, they did.
Right. But Pickens was the guy that I was sitting there saying, hey, this would be the perfect, number one type receiver. You took Alex Pierce. I think he's playing well, but talk to me about the receiving group in Indy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely early on, I agree with you. I felt like they needed to invest more into this wide receiver room. They really seemed like they relied on T.Y. Hilton, 2017, 2018, really, and 2019, I guess you could throw in there as well. So like his first 3 years, Ballard really didn't touch the wide receiver room. He in the draft, I should say, in free agency, he tried to sign a couple guys. So I would say his free agency signings of wide receivers has not been very good. Hasn't really been a great track record. But when it comes to wide receivers he's drafted, he's actually drafted some talented guys. You mentioned them. Paris Campbell, the only reason why, we're not talking about him more is just because of the injuries, right? I mean, he's talented. He had 10 catches a week ago. So he definitely is a guy that when he's healthy, he can be a nice target for your quarterback, a nice number 3 with your other 2 guys. Yeah, I like what I've seen from Pierce. I think he's been better than I think a lot of us expected because you never know with rookie wide receivers. Right. I think he's been solid. I think he had obviously a week 1, a shaky start, but he's really come into his own, and I really think he's developing into a nice number 2. And then, yeah, you're right with Pittman. He's been a really nice find there in the second round. So the fact that the Colts haven't used a first-round pick on any of these guys, and all 3 of them to this point, this year especially, are all stepping up, I really think that's great. Yeah, that's one thing that Ballard has really done a good job in terms of the talent and finding the talent has been wide receiver and tight end. Because talk about Woods, you drafted a guy a couple years ago in Kylan Granson. Who he doesn't have these crazy stats, but he's good for a couple catches that are key in the game, right? That move the chains, and he's not targeted a whole lot, but he's a key cog in what this offense likes to do. So I would say if there's a strength that Ballard has done really well as of recent, it's definitely been finding these skilled position guys. And I'll admit, I was wrong. I wanted to vet wide receiver because I was like, you can't rely on Alec Pierce or Paris Campbell to stay healthy. But they stuck with it. I want to give them credit. They stuck with it. And it seems like as of right now, that's been the least of their concerns, has been the wide receivers and tight ends.
Right. I I don't love what he's done at receiver in the draft or free agency, but love what he's done with the running backs. Love what he's done with the tight ends. He seems to have a knack for finding some good players with those particular positions. To me, all right. So now I want to get more specific. Kind of talk about this game, Week 8. Washington Commanders coming to town. They're riding a 2-game win streak, their first of the season, looking to get back to 500 on the season. I want to know, you watch this guy up close and personal. You know, I've watched him from afar at Texas, but you've watched him in preseason games. What do you expect from Sam Ellinger, not just in this game, we'll get to this game in particular, but just overall this season? What do you expect the offense to look like with Sam Ellinger? Obviously, he's a guy that's going to be able to use his legs a lot more. They're going to probably try to move the pocket a little bit, maybe some RPOs and things of that nature, maybe even some read option. What do you expect to see from Sam Ellinger? Give us a little bit of what you've seen from him in some preseason action over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I would say especially this year in the preseason, Sam Ellinger definitely showed out. He had some really nice games, albeit against 2s and 3s, but I thought he looked like he definitely improved from his rookie season. So as far as what you're going to see from him, I think you nailed it right on the head there, Louie, just talking about, they're going to use his legs a little bit more because Matt Ryan was a statue back there. He couldn't really run it. So they're going to use him in more of the RPOs, the play action, stuff like that. I think a little bit more than Matt Ryan was was able to with given his age and immobility back there. And I mean, they're going to need it because this offensive line has been horrendous through 7 weeks. And so he's going to probably have to scramble a lot for his life in a lot of situations. Doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, I'll say that. Like, that's definitely probably his kind of detriment is like he doesn't really have a great arm. Right. But, he made a couple nice passes on the run in the preseason to make me think that he could still be not great. He's never going to be like a Josh Allen or anything like that. But like, he can get the job done when need be. So I'll just say this, whether for better or for worse, this offense is actually going to be fun to watch. Right. Like, it was so boring with Matt Ryan back there. It was just so like, at least Sam's going to take some risks, man. He's going to make some plays with his leg, and then maybe that's what this Colts offense needs. I don't know.
I was like, why couldn't you just wait till week 9, man? Just give me my shot at Matt Ryan. Everybody else was getting their shot and their turn. Why'd you have to wait until week 8? But I liked him at Texas. And if you can throw with anticipation, you can negate the lack of arm strength. So we'll see what Sam Ellinger brings to the table. I already watched a lot of him at Texas. I know what this kid brings to the table. I know the toughness. I know the moxie. I know the poise. I'm nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. I was so looking forward to Matt Ryan, and this was a big curveball that Frank Wright and company threw our way. So not a lot to go on, in the NFL. You don't want to really go too much off of the preseason because, again, you're doing vanilla stuff. So they're going to have all these different wrinkles that we're not going to be prepared for. And we don't do a great job with, guys that we haven't seen something on and we don't know what's coming. We don't have tendencies to go off of. So I am not looking forward to this. Hopefully the offensive line fails him miserably, but his legs are going to be a problem in this game. So, all right, every guest that comes on the show, I ask the same question. Give me the biggest strength of the Indianapolis Colts right now to date. Give me their biggest weakness as well.
I think weakness is pretty obvious. It's the offensive line. It's one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid position group in the NFL. It's been clearly the worst in the NFL. I mean, just tack the middle of the offensive line and, really anywhere on this offensive line, and you'll probably have some success. Yeah. All 5 starters have just been, below average at this point. And that's just shocking with how well they played a couple of years ago. So I'd say that's the weakness. As far as the strength goes, on the defense, I would definitely probably say, I would say they're secondary, depending who they play. If they play Isaiah Rodgers on the outside, I do think they're secondary. They have 4 guys that could really play well at all 4 starting positions back there. And I really like what they do and the ways that they use these guys. So I'd probably say that, it's been a secondary that's actually looked pretty good given the circumstances, right? You talked about they've been able to shut down like the Patrick Mahomes. They've been able to really shut down and limit Ryan Tannehill in both matchups. So, the secondary, I think, is going to do its job, and they're going to really force Washington to try some new things, try to establish the running game, and stuff like that. Because I don't think the secondary just man on man is going to surrender a whole lot. I think they're one of the best. They're definitely top 5 in terms of passing yards allowed in a game. So that would probably be my strength overall in the team. I could also probably throw in the skill positions on offense, but I'll stick with the secondary.
Yeah. So it is the peak of the offense, what it's supposed to look like when it's running on all cylinders, that Jacksonville game?
Even better. It should be better because Taylor wasn't even in that game.
Right.
And, Taylor hasn't really been able to get it going all year, really outside of week 1 because of how bad the offensive line has been. But I'll say this, Jonathan Taylor last week only got 10 carries, but he averaged almost 6 yards a carry. So if they give him the ball, I do think Taylor can get back to where he was, or at least somewhat where he was. He can get back into that top 5 running back category. But that's been another concern with Frank Reich is like, for whatever reason, there's just certain times where we don't use our best players and we don't put them in positions to win. So yeah, I mean that the running back should be the strength, but right now it's just like, you just don't know from week to week what you're going to get.
Are you guys still going with the Bernard Ryman experiment at tackle?
We'll see. Last couple of weeks has been Dennis Kelly at left tackle recently. I personally would like to see Ryman because he's a rookie. Let him play. I mean, if you're going to be bad, be bad. Be bad with young guys. That's kind of my philosophy with it. So right now, I think, and we'll see if this changes, but right now I think it's Kelly, it's Nelson, it's the other Ryan Kelly, and then it's been Matt Pryor, and then it's been Braden Smith at offensive line. So, but yeah, if Ryman's a starter, I'll be fine with that.
Okay. And has Chase McLaughlin stabilized the kicking situation, I'll say? Has he done that?
Oh, yeah. That's been one of the positive things this year. McLaughlin, he's missed, I think, 1, but he's been really good. He's been pretty much automatic all year. And it's just crazy because I'm like, man, do you think about it? If we had him week 1, I mean, we'd probably be a 4-win football team.
Yeah, probably would have won. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you had some kicks missed. Lucky you didn't cost you the Chiefs game, right? Like that was when you finally got rid of Rodrigo Blankenship. So, man, I can't thank you enough for doing this, Cody. Before I let you go, gotta ask. I need a prediction. What do you got happening in this game in week 8?
All right. So prediction. So how many? Just so I can get an idea, what was your guys' score last week?
23-21 over the Packers.
23-21. Okay. I'm gonna say it's a lower scoring game. I'm gonna give Washington the edge just because it's Sam's first game. He's probably gonna make some mistakes. He's a young quarterback, so I'm gonna say 17-14 Washington.
Okay. All right. So you guys heard it from our guy Cody from Bring the Juice Colts podcast. I really appreciate you coming on. Tell everyone where they can find your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us like you on YouTube. You can just type in Bring the Juice or Colts Podcast. We'll show up there. You can find us on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, really anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're probably on there. And then from social media, you can find me on Twitter at CPFelger55. You can find the podcast at BTJ Pod, and you can also find the podcast and myself on Instagram as well under those same handles.
Yes. Great follow on Twitter. Really appreciate you doing this. And as I tell every single guest, may you have the best of luck the remainder of the year, just not on Sunday. All right.
That's exactly what I tell our guests.
Have a good one, Cody. Thank you for joining us. And can't wait. Bart Scott. Can't wait. Want to thank my guy, Cody, from Bring the Juice Colts podcast. Great guest, really informative. Got us up to speed on where we needed to be heading into this game. So tomorrow, he set the table essentially for us. Now we'll be able to go into tomorrow's show with a clear mind and an open heart. Okay, don't let your heart affect your mind in terms of these picks and how you see this game going. Go from your gut. Okay, leave your heart out of this. You start to allow your heart to get in there. That's how you start making some irrational decisions. But you've got all the information that you need now. We'll have our game plan tomorrow, keys to the game, and of course, our prediction for the Week 8 matchup on the road at Indianapolis. We heard from some of the players. Terry McLaurin's going home. He talked about that, ticket requests, all of that stuff. But I loved Terry's message. Hey, I love the fact that I'm getting to go home, play in front of a lot of people who helped me get to this point. But the mission still remains the same. That's to get the win. And I don't want me going back home to overshadow what the ultimate goal is, which is to win. Man, I love that guy. Benjamin St. Juste had a great line about Taylor Heineke where he said, look, he's tough, he's gritty, he's not gonna, shy away from contact. He's gonna make plays when you need them the most. He said, yeah, he's gonna mess up, he's gonna make some mistakes, and we saw that, but he's never gonna back down, and when the game's on the line, we trust forward. So he's the first guy that acknowledges, hey, Taylor's gonna F up. Okay, he's gonna throw it to the other team, or he's gonna fumble, it's gonna be some shit. But when we need him to step up, when we need a throw, when we need a play, when we need his legs, he's gonna make it happen. And that's I think that encapsulates the thought process of the guys in that locker room. They believe in Heineke because his never say die attitude and leaving it out all on the football field. They can respect that. So in any event, that's gonna do it for me, your man Louie T. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Friday when we get the game plan and the keys to victory and ultimately the prediction for what we think is going to happen. Can't wait to read what you guys think is going to transpire and take place. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, Thursday Night Football. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys there if you're going to join me for that. Should be a good one. Ravens and Bucks. Until then, you guys, take care. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.